Innovation, what does that mean? There are a lot of themes, and so when I work with many of you in the audience, when I'm learning more about your business and what you're trying to accomplish, it really boils down to a couple things, and these become more purpose-built, if you will, as we talk about what it does for you. But whether it's cloud modernization, whether it's optimization of a business analytics process, or really what matters most at the end of the day, which are those flawless experiences at the edge and the great customer experience, these are all things that we're using to drive innovation. Now, how do we achieve that? How do you get to those parts where you are really delivering on those customer experiences? So that's cloud modernization, as Rick and Andy were talking about. It's the embrace of data, the embrace of AI. It's really how do we think about the way we operationalize these areas? How can we be more efficient? How can we be more secure? And how can we empower that innovation? And that's where we really punch home this point that it is about business transformation. That's what makes this critical. It's how do we drive growth? How do we do it effectively? How do we get to the value? And so over the course of the day, you'll hear from customers, you'll hear from partners, but one of the things that we also do is look at Dynatrace as customer zero. And so when we think about transformation, I'd like to welcome Colleen to the stage, our Chief Transformation Officer. Colleen, come on up.
Thanks, Steve. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, as you might have guessed by my title. We all want to innovate faster, and transformation is a key enabler to that. But transformation alone can't just be done by technology. It's about combining people, process, and technology to enable that. That means you have to understand how is your organization structured to enable that transformation. In addition, what are the steps and the process that you need to define to enable the technology? And ultimately, you have to make sure you have the best and the right technology to enable that innovation. That alone doesn't drive successful transformation. You can't do it in a silo. You have to work cross-functionally. That means collaborating across teams, whether that's R&D to sales, sales to post-sales. It's essential that you collaborate across the organization in order to deliver the business value together. As Steve and Rick and Bernd have all mentioned, we've got similar challenges and goals. This is why we're constantly looking at how can we do better at Dynatrace. And as mentioned by Steve, we are customer zero, which means we're leveraging Dynatrace on Dynatrace. We want to be able to enable the cloud journey so we can better maximize the data that you and us get out of it. In addition, we want to be able to automate and streamline our processes. And finally, we want to be able to provide our teams with the insights that they need in order to better enable the overall experience, whether that's internally for us, or for all of you in the audience, or all of your customers as well. So we start with cloud modernization. For me, this is all about the data. Data is the lifeblood of our organization, as I'm sure it is for many of you as well. The challenge is that data's complex. It's messy. It doesn't live in one place. It spans teams. It spans systems. It spans technology stacks. But we want to drive faster decisions. So we need to be able to quickly access that data, to contextualize it, and to be able to ensure that it's of consistent, high quality. That means we want to trust that data, because we need our teams to be able to collaborate, to drive faster hypotheses, and to gain the insights they need to move the business forward. The way we're doing that within Dynatrace is we're combining Grail with Davis AI and systems like Snowflake. So we're not just contextualizing that data, although that is a really important part, but as I think many of you probably know, Dynatrace already does that. So we're going one step further to help us understand, resolve, or even prevent that problem from happening in the first place so we can drive better data quality. One example of how we're doing that is we're looking at things like a misspelled or a new field that might show up in your system. That historically would cascade through all of your applications, all of your systems, and impact many cross-functional users. Dynatrace is helping us prevent that from happening in the first place, just as it prevents impacts to your operations.
Yeah, and so this is a great example. How can you think about Dynatrace applied to data? Transformation is going to depend on that data being in the right hands at the right time, at the right place. And so when Colleen and team looks at it, it's like, all right, we have to make sure that data volume is in the right zone. We have over, let's call it 2.5 billion rows a day being added into these different stores. Is the distribution proper, across those 4,000 columns? All to understand how that should be performing. And so how can you think about that in your environment to make sure that you have the data, that you have the identification, and then you have the value of Davis AI to let you know when those problems are occurring so you can capture them and bring that resolution that Rick mentioned, down from weeks and days to minutes, and then ideally looking at that and understanding how to preempt those problems, how to automate, how to introduce workflows so that they don't happen in the future.
That's right, but it's not just about improving data quality. It's also about how can we enable and really look at our business processes. We need to be able to work more efficiently and to better serve all of you as customers. That means that we have to look at our end-to-end process. So we're looking at one of our most complex processes, which is our quote-to-cash process. It involves over 15 different teams to go from start to finish, 5 different systems, and nearly 10 different integrations across those systems. Throughout that process, there's lots of points where there could be bottlenecks or slowdowns. So this was clearly something we needed to look at internally. So that's what we did. we looked at that, and we said, how can we leverage Dynatrace to help us capture critical business observability data, as well as business events, so that we can map that out for every step of the process. We modeled that so that we could understand why a quote might be hanging, why a transaction is taking too long, and even why a manual step might be taking a longer amount of time or a shorter amount of time than it historically had. We're just, though, at the start of this journey, and so we are really excited about the impact that this could have by being able to automate our end-to-end process to really drive our overall transformation journey.
Yeah, and this is a great example. When we talk about bringing the power of Grail to the platform, it can change the way you look at business process. It can change the way you look at that optimization. We are always really good at the short-running process, but now what are those business processes that take more time, that might have a manual step intermixed in that process as well? And then once again, bringing Davis AI to help identify those issues, both in real time, but then also the business analytics, using business events to think about how those processes perform over time and getting the right data insights.
Great. So our last example is going to be a customer example. Our first 2 are about Dynatrace on Dynatrace. Now we'll share a little bit about a customer. A large customer who's a large telecommunication company in Europe had an edict to increase productivity while transforming and modernizing their business processes and services. This meant that they had to look at their process end to end. They were trying to understand how they could better enable an upcoming iPhone launch. They had to work across all of their systems, their teams, the technology, to make sure it all worked perfectly so they could get any phone to launch, let alone one of the most popular phones in the market at the time. So they mapped out from the start of the process, when a customer will go on to order that phone online and put it in their shopping cart, all the way through to getting that to the customer in their hands as fast as possible. That meant they had to look at site time availability. They had to understand inventory. Did they have what they needed based on what the customer demand was? They had to look at logistics and shipping. Could they get the phone to the customer in the time that they committed? They were able to do this by working with Dynatrace to help understand the entire user journey. They were able to resolve and prevent problems from occurring in the first place. By automating the process, the team was able to deliver the most successful iPhone launch in history. It's pretty amazing. You can see some of the stats back here around how they were able to increase the overall traffic while at the same time lowering the bounce rates, having 0% degradation, which ultimately resulted in an upgrade in an overall number of upgrades and an increase in their sales. Dynatrace working together with this customer, they were able to seamlessly orchestrate the back-end systems as well as the process to deliver an overall better customer experience.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we can all really understand. We can either appreciate it as a consumer, but obviously in this room, we're thinking about it more, how do we make sure we deliver on those great customer experiences? And so we've gone through a couple of examples of innovation, both from Colleen's role focusing internal at Dynatrace, but then also her work in terms of looking at capabilities as we look to you, working with all of you from a customer standpoint. So want to thank Colleen for taking us through those, and we'll continue on the journey. Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks, Steve.
And we're going to pick up at customer experience, because that is really the mission. When we talk about flawless customer experiences, when we think about software working perfectly, it is all about the customer. And so for this next piece, I'm really pleased and excited to welcome up Chris Conklin from TD Bank to share a little bit more about his journey as well. Chris? All right. Thanks, Chris, for being up here.
Absolutely.
So this is a great opportunity really to look at someone who operates at scale and has a maniacal focus on that experience. But Chris, why don't we start off, maybe just give the room a little context for the size, the sophistication of TD Bank.
Absolutely. And before we go there, so you've already said it several times, we are on this journey of transformation. And part of that really in this is how can we best represent our customers with the technology that we're serving them. And so really, if we think about TD, we are in a business of trust. With that, we have to make sure that we are meeting our customers' needs. We're giving them the products and services that they need to then fulfill their goals in life. As you can imagine, and I'm sure it's very similar across many technology companies, we have a very large technology stack. We have customer bases within the US and Canada. We have multiple technology stacks representing multiple lines of business. And with that, we span across multiple platforms like our traditional data center, also private cloud and public cloud. All that being said, we're measuring 19.5 billion of our customers' most critical transactions across every bit of that. So you can imagine what that smartscape may look like if you think about it. It is a massive spider web of everything that we have serving our customer.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can all appreciate here, just how, what that takes really to operate that securely and at scale. Now, it was great to learn a little bit more, and in working with TD Bank over the years, what was inspiring was really their focus on that customer experience. A lot of us look at observability through different lenses, or there'll be different measures, different SLOs, different things we think about. But I would love, Chris, just to take us a little bit through kind of what their mantra is and how they look at observability delivery.
It's a great question. So I have the privilege of working with a fantastic team where we focus on really high availability and reducing customer irritants. So with that being said, I wanted to kind of give an example of a journey we started roughly 5 years ago where we worked with every bit of our business and technology partners to identify what is critical to our customers. Through those partnerships, we're able to understand really what drives their business and what really makes our customers tick, and hopefully creating those legendary customer experiences. With that being said, we were able to build trust within our internal organization as well as with our customers. And at the end of the day, I'm really proud that if you look at we're able to proactively identify 25% more customer irritants or customer impacting events. With those, respond 20% faster. And then ultimately, the biggest accomplishment is we've reduced those customer irritants by 60%. And this is over in a very short period of time, and we couldn't have been able to do it without observability.
Oh, that's great. And I really just do love that concept about legendary experiences, because that's a high bar to hit. But it's probably a lot easier to say that and say that you're going to go after that than what it took to actually get there. And so another theme that you'll see through the next couple of days is also the simplification that, just like Colleen hit, it's not just tech alone, but it's got to be then process. It's got to be different actions you take to really align the environment. And Chris, I was hoping maybe you could take us through a little bit some of the steps that you did to make that happen.
Yeah, and so I think what we found is really through this journey, what we found was it was incredibly difficult to stitch together every bit of the data sources that we had across the myriad of tool sets. And with that, it became very difficult to see things on one pane of glass. And as you all know, when you start to dive into an issue, if you're having to jump from tool to tool to tool to figure out what's going on with a customer, it's not a great experience. And so it really became very critical for us to get us down to a more consolidated tool set, ultimately one, so that we can paint that picture and be able to look at things on one pane of glass. With that being said, there's all kinds of side benefits to that where you have reduced operating costs because you're not sitting around maintaining a bunch of tool sets. You're focused on building and innovating and helping the customer and helping the company's bottom line.
Yeah, that's a great theme, and one that I hear from a lot of you. It's not just about the different tooling that's there. It's about getting everyone on the same system. It's about the collaboration that happens when you have that single view. So I know that you're not going to sit and be happy with the current benefits that you're delivering back to your partners. What's next? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, and so what's really cool is the end of this, or not really end of this, the constant journey is as you're collecting all this great data, you can do amazing things with it. We're able to pinpoint root cause and then drive automation, and then down the road, really, we're seeking a way that we can have zero touch or very close, low touch, automated response, and then communication with our stakeholders, which is really important. Again, I circle back to we're in a business of trust. If our partners are trusting us to deliver for them, we are keeping them abreast of all the situations that we run into, automatically responding, and then driving down customer impact. How could we not win?
All right. Well, Chris, that's awesome. Very inspiring. Everything from putting those legendary customer experiences up to where you're heading with data and AI and automation. So just wanted to thank you, from all the audience for coming up here and sharing your experiences.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that was one of the pillars. When we think about innovation, from cloud modernization to business process analytics to really those customer experiences and what it takes to get there and make that happen. If you remember back, there were 3 columns up there, and we're going to move to the second one, which is around how can we drive that innovation, but at the same time optimizing the cost.